Hi, my name is Lexi Mentor, and I will be doing my final project for Essential Biology over the Atlantic salmon, why they're endangered. I will be starting with the basics of the Atlantic salmon, so their weight, lifespan, measurements. From there I'll go into their stages of life, pre-hatch and post-hatch. After that we'll get into the complexities of their lifestyle, and after that we'll actually go into why they're endangered and some statistics on that. So, just a little preface, I have never made a video like this before. It's my first time using Prezi Video, so please bear with me. So, the statistics of the basics of the Atlantic salmon. Keep in mind these are all averages, there are outliers, but their average lifespan is about 3 to 7 years. They weigh an average of 8 to 12, but they can reach up to 30 pounds. They measure about 28 to 30 inches in length. They are anadromous, which means they can live in both fresh and salt water, but we will get more into that when I go over their lifestyle. Sorry for saying a lot. And last but not least, they are known as the king of fish because it's not only due to their life cycle, which as I said we'll go over, but they also cascade waterfalls, they can make insane jumps, and yes, that is why. So as you can see here, they have a long, thin body. Their eyes tend to extend below their eye, as you can see there. They have almost all white underbellies. This is all when they're older. They have pretty blunt noses. They have pretty blunt noses, as I said. And next, we will get into the stages of life, starting with the pre-hatch stages and moving on to the post-hatch, which will help with the discussion of their life cycle. So onto the stages of their life. What you can't see in the diagram is the pre-hatch stage. So they start as green eggs, which is less than 48 hours after being spawned. Then they are the tender eggs, which is between the green and the eyed stage. The eyed stage is where you can actually see their eyes. Onto the post-hatch, I will give a little zoom in on the diagram over here. So after, the eggs, they have the alevins are the next stage, which are newly hatched young with an unabsorbed yolk sac. You can see that hanging below their little bellies. After that is the fry. Those are the salmon that absorbed their yolk sac, emerge from the gravel, and are ready for food. Next is the par, which are known as older juveniles, and they have prominent par marks. Then there's the smolt. They are young salmon that are ready to go to sea. What they don't show here are the grills stage, which are Atlantic salmon that have spent one winter in the sea and have returned to the freshwater to spawn. Next is the multi-sea winter salmon, which is a fish that has spent at least 2 years at sea before returning to freshwater to spawn. And then the kelts, which are salmon which have spawned and are still in fresh water or are returning to the sea. Alright, now that we have gone over that, it'll make it much easier to talk about the stages of their life or the life cycle, because that talks a lot about those stages that we've previously discussed. So next is that. Okay, so this next part is where the term anadromous comes back into play, meaning that they can live in both salt and freshwater environments. So the eggs begin to hatch around April or May. So after about 3 to 4 weeks, the fry then begin to emerge from the rocks, and oh no. From there they then transition into the par stage. They will spend 1 to 3 years here growing, feeding. I'll edit that out. And hiding between rocks. They do this until about 6 inches long, and from there they will swim out to sea. This is also where they become silvery in color. Like I said, they'll migrate out to the ocean until they are ready to spawn. This is when their homing instinct kicks in, and they can go off of that. They can swim for up to 200 miles just to find the right place to spawn. And that is the very complex lifestyle of an Atlantic salmon. Now we can get into why they are endangered, along with some statistics on them. So to start off this portion, the main reason they are endangered is due to dams, pollution, and overfishing. Fishing is now, for Atlantic salmon at least, prohibited in the United States because this is the main reason they are critically endangered, and along the sides of Europe. As you can see in this graph that I will zoom in on, their population started greatly decreasing about 30 years ago. And since then, we have not been close to the conservation line aside from that brief little period in 2010. We are working on some solutions for recovery, but so far they have all been quite expensive. They will take a lot of time. We do definitely want to increase their population, as we do with any endangered species. So next I will go into just the kind of solutions they have in mind. So, although fisheries and hatcheries have been put in place, it isn't actually doing much to help the recovery. Right now, there are some conservation groups, fish organizations that are calling for the removal of up to 4 dams along a 30-mile stretch of the Kennebec, please forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, river in Maine. That is where Maine's 1/3 of the best salmon habitat remains. However, the dam's owner, multinational Brookfield Renewable Partners, are proposing the idea of fishways, which would aid in not only Atlantic salmon but other migratory fish, to get across the dams, over the dams, around the dams, what have you. Experts, however, unfortunately, think that, one, this won't help as much as they would hope, I suppose, but it's also going to be very expensive, time costly, which we don't really have much time right now. That is the first possible solution I have in mind. So before we get into the next one, I would just like to briefly talk about the last remaining wild adult salmon reside in the Gulf of Maine. So right now they are known as the Gulf of Maine distinct population. And the next plan that I will talk about revolves around that. So this next plan for recovery is called the Final Recovery Plan for the Gulf of Maine Distinct Population Segment. It has been coming for maybe 2 decades now. There were several rivers of fish that were protected late in 2000, and from there they expanded to include basically all wild population, which now sadly is only in Maine. There are some criteria that has to be met for the salmon to be released from the Endangered Species Act, ESA. The first one being that they have to, returning adult salmon has to reach at least 2,000 each year, and as of last year and many years before that, they have been less than 1,000. Their ultimate goal is to reach about 6,000 each year. So the recovery plan itself estimates that it could take at least 75 years to really truly recover the salmon population, and that it could cost upwards to begin at about $24.6 million. But in reality, it could cost upwards about $100 million between now and the next 75 years. And sadly, if this fails, if the last plan fails, there is essentially no hope that the Atlantic salmon population could ever recover. So with that all being said, this does conclude my presentation. I do apologize if there weren't enough details included. I'll edit this out too if I can. Thank you for watching.